The rumor hit like a bomb, not a press release. 1 minute Angel Reese was trending for her play. The next her name was everywhere for something darker, messier, and far more dangerous to a career. Chicago Sky fires Angel Reese. Alleged. Unconfirmed. Explosive. And the reaction that followed made it impossible to ignore. Angel didn't issue a calm denial. She didn't hide. She erupted online in fragments, deleted posts, cryptic captions, raw emotion bleeding through the screen. Fans called it a meltdown. Critics called it proof. Supporters called it a setup. And hovering over everything was one brutal comparison that refused to die. She's no Caitlin Clark. That line cut deeper than the rumor itself. Because in this league, perception moves faster than truth. One player is framed as composure. The other as chaos. One as the future. The other as expendable. And as the sky stayed silent, that silence became gasoline. Group chats inside the WNBA lit up. Agents started calling. Teammates stopped commenting. Media panels debated whether Angel had crossed a line, without even agreeing on what line existed. Meanwhile, Caitlin Clark's name was dragged into the storm as the supposed contrast. The gold standard Angel was now being measured against in real time. Angel felt it closing in. The narrative, the labels, the whispers that she was difficult, replaceable, not worth the headache. Her emotional response wasn't just about one team or one rumor. It was about years of being told to tone it down while others were praised for passion. And then came the moment that changed everything. A single message surfaced, allegedly from inside the Chicago Sky organization, hinting that this wasn't just a rumor leaking. It was a warning shot. And Angel Reese realized her career might be on the line before the truth even caught up. Angel Reese didn't arrive in the WNBA quietly, and she was never supposed to. From the first moment cameras followed her into arenas, she carried something heavier than expectation. She carried projection. Fans didn't just watch her play, they watched her perform, dissecting every reaction, every celebration, every moment of visible emotion as evidence for whatever narrative they already believed. Long before Chicago, long before rumors of firing, Angel learned that the margin for error around her was razor thin. She came up fighting for space. Fighting to be seen as more than an attitude, more than a headline, more than a viral clip stripped of context. Every rebound was power. Every stare was defiance. That edge made her magnetic and dangerous, in a league still negotiating how much emotion it allows women to show without punishment. Angel didn't hide who she was. She leaned into it, because shrinking had never protected her anyway. Chicago was supposed to be different. A fresh start. A franchise that embraced toughness, grit, and personality. At first, it felt like belonging. Fans rallied. Jerseys sold. The city loved her fire, until it didn't. Because love in this league is conditional, and patience evaporates the moment a player stops fitting the preferred image. Angel felt the shift before anyone admitted it. Conversations grew shorter. Feedback became indirect. Praise turned cautious. She noticed how similar behavior was framed differently depending on who displayed it. When Angel showed emotion, it was a problem. When others did, it was competitive fire. That double standard wasn't imagined. It was lived. And always, Caitlin Clark's name hovered nearby. Not as a rival she chose, but as a comparison she couldn't escape. Caitlin was framed as composure, as control, as the league's ideal reflection. Angel was framed as the opposite, raw, volatile, unpredictable. It didn't matter that both were elite. The contrast became a weapon. Angel heard it in interviews, saw it in headlines, felt it in how mistakes were magnified. The unspoken message was constant. Be great, but not too loud. Be passionate, but not uncomfortable. Win, but don't disrupt. She tried to adjust without erasing herself. Tried to channel emotion inward. But restraint never felt natural, and suppression only made the pressure build. Every time she swallowed a reaction, something else hardened. Inside Chicago, the expectations were never clearly defined. Angel wasn't told she was in danger. She was just left guessing. And uncertainty is corrosive. It makes players paranoid, hyper-aware, defensive. Angel started feeling like she was being evaluated not just on performance, but on likability. That fear wasn't irrational. She'd seen how quickly teams move on from players labeled difficult. How narratives solidify faster than facts. How silence from management often means decisions are already made. Then came the whispers. Not official conversations. Not meetings. Just murmurs about chemistry, about image, about long-term direction. Angel felt her name attached to words like risk and distraction. No one said it to her directly, which made it worse. She was left to interpret shadows. When the rumor of her firing exploded, it didn't feel impossible to her. It felt like a culmination. Years of being tolerated rather than trusted. Years of carrying the burden of representation without protection. Her reaction wasn't about losing Chicago. It was about being reduced again. About seeing her career threatened not by talent, but by narrative. Meanwhile, the Caitlin Clark comparison burned hotter. Commentators questioned whether Angel had the maturity to last. Fans weaponized the contrast mercilessly, as if success came with one approved personality template. Angel didn't feel jealous. She felt angry at the structure that demanded sameness while pretending to celebrate diversity. She scrolled through comments that erased her accomplishments. She read think pieces that psychoanalyzed her emotions without ever asking why she had them. The frustration spilled over, not because she was unstable, but because she was tired. Tired of code switching. Tired of being measured differently. Tired of knowing that one mistake could cost her everything. Her emotional history wasn't chaos. It was accumulation. And as Chicago Sky's silence stretched on, Angel realized something terrifying. The story was being written without her. The backstory wasn't just about how she got here. It was about how easily she could be pushed out. Because when a league decides you're no longer convenient, truth becomes optional. And Angel Reese was starting to fear that the next chapter wouldn't be decided by her performance, but by who the system was willing to protect when pressure hit hardest. The silence from Chicago Sky became louder than any denial could have been. Hours passed after the rumor exploded, and still no statement. No clarification. No protection. Angel Reese watched the clock like it was counting down her career. Every minute without response felt deliberate, calculated, cruel. The longer the organization stayed quiet, the more the story hardened into truth for the public. Angel's phone wouldn't stop vibrating. Agents, friends, former teammates, everyone asking the same question she couldn't answer herself. Is it real? Inside the Sky's front office, panic clashed with strategy. Executives argued about optics, not facts. Some wanted to shut the rumor down immediately. Others believed letting it breathe would reveal her true colors. That phrase alone said everything. The conflict was no longer about basketball. It was about control. Angel, meanwhile, was unraveling in real time. Not because she was guilty of anything, but because she was being judged without a voice. She fired back online, not with a statement, but with emotion. Screenshots. Subtle jabs. A single sentence that went viral instantly. Funny how loud they are when you're winning, and silent when they're done with you. That post became the spark. Media outlets framed it as confirmation of instability. Talking heads questioned her professionalism. Fans split violently. Some demanded the Sky protect her. Others said the reaction proved she was a liability. The comparison to Caitlin Clark returned with venom. Clips of Caitlin's calm interviews flooded timelines next to Angel's raw posts, framed as contrast, not coincidence. Inside the locker room, the fracture was immediate. Teammates didn't know what to say. Some reached out privately. Others went quiet, fearing association. Angel felt the distance grow by the hour. The isolation was complete. Then came the first shocking twist. A respected league reporter broke a new detail late that night. Chicago Sky had not fired Angel Reese, but they had begun internal discussions about her future with the organization weeks earlier. The report cited multiple sources. That single sentence detonated everything. Now the narrative shifted from rumor to inevitability. Fans felt lied to. Angel felt betrayed. Because if discussions were happening behind her back, the silence made sense. The lack of denial made sense. The organization wasn't correcting the story because they were preparing for it. Angel's emotions tipped from hurt to fury. She demanded answers. Called her agent. Requested an emergency meeting with Sky leadership. The response she received was cold and devastating. We'll circle back. Circle back. Those words landed harder than any firing notice could have. They confirmed what she'd feared. She wasn't a priority anymore. She was a problem to manage. As the night stretched on, more details leaked. Anonymous quotes painted Angel as hard to coach, as emotionally draining, as not aligning with the long-term culture. No performance stats. No on-court failures. Just character assessments. Angel read every word. Each one felt like a character assassination dressed up as professionalism. And then the second layer of the twist emerged. Another source revealed that Chicago Sky executives had internally compared Angel's market volatility to Caitlin Clark's brand stability. That comparison was never meant to be public. But once it was out, it rewrote everything. This wasn't just about behavior. It was about marketability. Angel realized in that moment that she was fighting something far bigger than a team decision. She was fighting an image economy that rewarded silence, palatability, and emotional restraint, traits she'd never been allowed to develop without criticism. Caitlin Clark's name trended again, unwillingly pulled deeper into the storm. Fans argued whether it was fair, whether Angel was being punished for not fitting the mold Caitlin supposedly represented. Caitlin herself stayed silent, which only intensified the debate. Inside Chicago Sky, the situation spiraled out of control. Sponsors called. Ticket sales wavered. PR teams drafted statements they never released. Leadership hesitated, afraid of saying the wrong thing, and saying nothing instead. Angel finally snapped. She went live. No filters. No prepared script. Just raw truth pouring out in real time. She spoke about feeling misled, about being evaluated differently, about loving the city but feeling disposable. Her voice cracked. Her anger burned. She didn't accuse directly, but the implications were unmistakable. The internet exploded again. Some praised her bravery. Others said she'd sealed her fate. Executives watched in horror as their worst fear materialized. Angel was no longer controllable. Minutes after the live ended, another bomb dropped. An internal memo leaked, dated weeks earlier, outlining contingency planning for roster changes. Angel's name wasn't redacted. That was it. The rumor was no longer just a rumor. Chicago Sky released a brief statement shortly after, claiming they were addressing misinformation and committed to internal resolution. It satisfied no one. The damage was done. Angel sat alone, staring at her phone, realizing something irreversible had happened. Whether she was fired tomorrow or not no longer mattered. The relationship was broken. Trust was gone. The first shocking twist wasn't that Chicago Sky might let her go. It was that they were willing to let her be destroyed publicly before doing it. And as Angel wiped her eyes and steadied her breathing, another realization hit harder than all the rest. If this was how the league treated players like her, then what came next wouldn't be quiet. It would be war. Within 48 hours of the leaked memo, Chicago Sky executives began acting like an exit was inevitable, even if they refused to say it out loud. Meetings happened without Angel. Practice plans changed without explanation. Media availability shifted. It was subtle, almost polite, which made it more brutal. This was how organizations push players out without ever saying the words. Angel felt it immediately. Her access card still worked, but the energy didn't. Staff avoided eye contact. Coaches spoke in rehearsed tones. Teammates were friendly but distant, like people saying goodbye before they're ready to admit it. The message was unmistakable. Prepare yourself. Meanwhile, the comparison to Caitlin Clark metastasized into something poisonous. Pundits stopped even pretending it was about basketball. They framed Angel as high risk and Caitlin as safe investment. Emotional versus composed. Volatile versus dependable. It wasn't analysis, it was branding. Angel watched it all with clenched fists. She wasn't losing her job because of performance. She was being priced out of comfort. As the pressure mounted, Chicago Sky made a calculated move. They leaked, quietly, that they were evaluating culture alignment across the roster. No names mentioned. No clarification. But everyone knew who it pointed to. Fans filled in the blanks instantly. That leak triggered the second major twist. Angel's agent received a call from a rival franchise. Not a formal offer. A temperature check. The message was clear. If Chicago lets you go, there's interest, but it won't be clean. Other teams wanted Angel's talent, but they also feared inheriting her reputation. They wanted assurances. Silence. Cooperation. They wanted her fire without the smoke. Angel realized the trap closing in. Stay quiet and survive. Speak out and risk everything. Chicago Sky, sensing leverage, finally requested a meeting. When Angel walked into that room, she already knew the outcome. The language was soft. Corporate. They praised her impact. Her marketability. Her passion. Then came the pivot. Concerns about fit. About direction. About long-term sustainability. Not once did they say fired. They didn't need to. Angel pushed back harder than they expected. She challenged the leaks, the silence, the memo. She asked why her name was discussed without her presence, why her emotions were treated like liabilities instead of leadership. The room stiffened. This wasn't the compliant conversation they'd prepared for. Then Chicago Sky revealed their hand. They said sponsors were nervous. They said fan sentiment was polarized. They said the organization couldn't afford continued distraction. That word again. Distraction. Angel laughed, not because it was funny, but because it was familiar. That was always the word used when truth became inconvenient, when a player refused to shrink. The second twist landed when the meeting ended. Within hours, Chicago Sky leaked that Angel Reese was considering a fresh start. They framed it as her decision. That narrative spread faster than the original firing rumor. Headlines praised the team's respectful handling. Angel was painted as emotional but self-aware, stepping away before things escalated. It was a masterclass in revision. Angel saw it and felt something break. They weren't just pushing her out. They were rewriting her exit. She immediately posted a single sentence online. Don't confuse silence with agreement. The league froze. Executives panicked. Reporters scrambled. Fans relit the fire. That sentence undid days of narrative management in seconds. Everyone understood what it meant. Angel wasn't consenting to the story being told about her. Chicago Sky responded by accelerating timelines. Internal conversations that were supposed to last weeks collapsed into days. Legal teams got involved. Contract language was reviewed aggressively. Suddenly, the possibility of a mutual separation became very real. And then the most dangerous escalation hit. A national outlet reported that Chicago Sky leadership had internally cited precedent when discussing Angel Reese, specifically comparing her situation to other outspoken players who were quietly moved out of the league. That crossed a line, because now it wasn't about one team. It was about pattern. Angel supporters erupted. Former players began posting vague but pointed messages about how quickly teams turn on women who refuse to conform. The league's image cracked publicly. Caitlin Clark's name was dragged back into the discourse again, unfairly positioned as the beneficiary of a system Angel was being punished by. Caitlin remained silent, but the silence no longer protected her. Critics accused the league of choosing its favorite. Supporters begged her to speak. Every path became dangerous. Angel, meanwhile, made a decision. If Chicago Sky wanted a clean exit, they wouldn't get one. She stopped engaging privately. No more meetings. No more negotiations behind closed doors. She let her agent handle logistics while she prepared something far more disruptive. A sit-down interview. Unedited. No team approval. No soft questions. Word leaked that it was coming, and panic swept through league offices. This wasn't a meltdown. This was a controlled detonation. Angel wasn't lashing out, she was documenting. Chicago Sky issued a final internal directive to staff. No comments. That silence confirmed everything Angel needed to know. Because when organizations stop talking, it's not because they're confident. It's because they're afraid of what the truth might expose. As the interview date approached, fans counted down. Sponsors watched nervously. Teams recalculated interest. Angel felt calm for the first time since the rumor broke. Calm meant clarity. She wasn't just fighting for her career anymore. She was fighting the story that said players like her were replaceable while others were untouchable. And when the interview finally aired, one question was going to determine everything. Would Angel Reese burn the bridge? Or would she reveal something that forced the league to reckon with far more than one team's decision? Because either way, there was no going back. Angel Reese didn't scream. She didn't cry. That was the most unsettling part. She spoke slowly, deliberately, like someone who had already survived the worst part and decided the truth was worth whatever came next. She described silence as punishment. She described being managed instead of supported. She described how quickly culture fit becomes a weapon when a player refuses to perform gratitude on command. The public reaction was instant and volcanic. Fans flooded timelines with disbelief, rage, and vindication. Some called Angel brave. Others called her reckless. The same split replayed itself across every platform, every show, every comment section. Former players posted knowing emojis and half-stories that confirmed more than they denied. Current players said nothing, and that silence spoke louder than words. Chicago Sky's response came hours later and felt surgical. A statement emphasizing organizational values, mutual respect, and ongoing evaluation. No denial. No acknowledgement of leaks. No apology. The absence of Angel's name was deafening. Sponsors reacted next. Some paused campaigns quietly. Others leaned in publicly, framing Angel as polarizing. That word followed her everywhere. Polarizing. As if truth itself were a brand risk. As if being honest required balancing against comfort. Meanwhile, the Caitlin Clark comparison returned with renewed cruelty. Headlines asked why Angel couldn't handle it like Caitlin. Panels praised composure without questioning why some players are allowed to have it and others must earn it through silence. Caitlin, again, was used as contrast instead of context. Angel saw it all. The emotional toll became visible in flashes, tired eyes, guarded smiles, a distance that hadn't been there before. She wasn't spiraling. She was bracing. Every appearance became strategic. Every word weighed. The joy that once poured out of her game now felt taxed by scrutiny. Inside the league, panic spread. Executives worried about precedent. If Angel could speak this openly, others might follow. Private calls were made. Quiet reassurances offered to players who hadn't asked for them. The message was subtle but clear. Don't let this get bigger. It got bigger anyway. Fans began asking harder questions. Why are outspoken women labeled problems? Why do brand-safe players get protected? Why does emotional expression threaten contracts? The league's growth narrative cracked under the weight of its contradictions. Chicago Sky faced backlash they hadn't anticipated. Ticket holders demanded transparency. Local media pressed harder. The team's silence turned from strategy to liability. They were no longer controlling the story, they were trapped inside it. Angel's emotional world narrowed to essentials. Family. Trusted friends. Her agent. She stopped doom-scrolling. Stopped responding. Stopped trying to correct every lie. She knew now that truth doesn't need constant defense. It needs timing. Caitlin Clark, watching from the outside, felt the pressure shift again. Fans begged her to comment, to condemn, to support, to distance. Whatever she did would be interpreted as choosing a side. Whatever she didn't do would be read as complicity. The pedestal shook beneath her feet. The league tried to move on. Scheduled games. Pushed highlights. Promoted unity. But the noise followed everything. Chants appeared. Signs in arenas. Questions at pressers that couldn't be redirected. Angel Reese became a symbol whether she wanted it or not. Not of chaos, but of consequence. And the emotional fallout wasn't just hers. It spread through locker rooms, through group chats, through the quiet calculations players make about when to speak and when to survive. Fear and admiration coexisted uncomfortably. As days passed, one truth hardened publicly. This wasn't about whether Angel Reese was fired. It was about how easily a narrative could be shaped before facts were allowed to exist. And as the league tried desperately to steady itself, a new rumor began circulating. Far more dangerous than the first. That Chicago Sky's decision wasn't final. That something behind the scenes was shifting again. And that Angel Reese, despite everything, might not be done forcing the truth into the light. Because the next move wouldn't come from a team. It would come from Angel herself. And when it did, the fallout wouldn't just be emotional. It would be structural. Late at night, while the league was still spinning narratives and fans were still arguing in circles, a document quietly surfaced. First to Angel's agent, then to a select few inside league offices. It wasn't a termination letter. It wasn't a trade proposal. It was something far more unsettling. A formal notice of administrative review. Chicago Sky hadn't fired Angel Reese. They had frozen her. The move was buried in procedural language, but the intent was clear. By triggering an internal review tied to conduct narratives and brand considerations, the organization effectively paused Angel's status without taking public responsibility. No games. No clarity. No resolution. Just limbo. It was the cleanest way to silence her without saying so. Angel read the notice twice, then a third time, and finally understood the strategy. This wasn't about removing her. It was about exhausting her. About letting time, uncertainty, and pressure do the work they didn't want to be blamed for. And it almost worked. The public didn't understand what had changed. Only that Angel had gone quiet. No practices. No appearances. No official updates. Critics immediately reframed the silence as proof that she'd gone too far. Supporters worried she was being forced out slowly. The ambiguity was poison. But Angel wasn't alone anymore. The interview had done something unexpected. It had cracked open doors behind the scenes. Former players started reaching out privately, sharing stories that mirrored hers too closely to ignore. Agents compared notes. Patterns emerged: administrative holds, culture reviews, silent freezes that pushed outspoken players into submission or exit. Angel realized this wasn't a Chicago Sky problem. It was a league pattern, and that realization sparked the real final twist. Instead of fighting the review quietly, Angel authorized her agent to do something unprecedented. They filed a formal request, not for reinstatement, not for a trade, but for disclosure. Full documentation. Internal communications tied to the leaks. Decision timelines. Comparative treatment across players. In short, Angel asked the league to put its process on the record. The request sent shockwaves through league offices. Because if granted, it would expose how narratives are built, how comparisons like "she's no Caitlin Clark" are quietly reinforced, and how emotional expression becomes a liability only for certain players. And if denied, it would confirm exactly what Angel had been saying all along. The league stalled. Chicago Sky issued a carefully vague update about ongoing evaluation. Fans sensed the tension immediately. Analysts began asking why an administrative review existed at all. The story reignited, this time with sharper questions and less patience. Caitlin Clark's name re-entered the conversation again, unwillingly but inevitably. Critics pointed out the contrast in how stars were protected. Supporters begged her to speak. Caitlin felt the vice tighten. Any comment could be seen as condemnation or complicity. Silence no longer felt neutral. Angel, meanwhile, prepared for the possibility that this fight could cost her everything. Endorsements were uncertain. Teams were watching carefully. Some interest remained, but contingent on her handling this cleanly. The message was the same everywhere. Truth is expensive. Then, just as the league thought it could slow-walk the moment into exhaustion, another bomb dropped. A whistleblower, anonymous but credible, hinted that the administrative review was never meant to conclude quickly, that its purpose was delay. Attrition. To let public attention fade while Angel's options narrowed. That hint was enough. Fans erupted again. Media pressure intensified. Questions turned accusatory. The league's attempt at quiet control had backfired spectacularly. Angel stood at a crossroads. She could accept a negotiated exit, preserve marketability, and move on quietly. Or she could escalate, force transparency, risk being labeled radioactive, and expose a system that had already decided how her story should end. Late that night, Angel posted a single image. No caption, just a screenshot, blurred, partial, unmistakable, of an internal timeline with her name on it. The internet froze. Chicago Sky went silent. The league's phones rang nonstop, because that image confirmed what everyone feared and suspected. Decisions had been made long before the public ever heard the rumor. And now, the only question left hanging in the air was devastatingly simple. Would Angel Reese release everything she had? Or would the league find a way to stop her before the truth became impossible to contain? Either way, one thing was certain. This wasn't about being fired anymore. It was about who controls the story when a player refuses to disappear. And the next move, Angel's move, would decide whether this scandal ended quietly, or cracked the foundation of the league wide open. This is the moment where silence becomes a choice. And choosing silence means choosing the system exactly as it is. Angel Reese's story isn't just a headline, and it isn't just about Chicago Sky. It's a warning flare for every player who believes talent alone is enough protection. If you felt uncomfortable reading this, that discomfort is the point. Because leagues don't change when fans stay quiet. They change when pressure becomes unavoidable. If you believe players deserve transparency instead of whispers, share this story. If you believe emotional expression shouldn't be weaponized, comment loudly. If you believe Angel Reese shouldn't be frozen out while narratives are built behind closed doors, make noise where the league can't ignore it. Algorithms don't care about fairness, but they amplify outrage, and outrage forces accountability. Ask the questions others won't. Why are some stars protected while others are punished for speaking? Why does professionalism always seem to mean silence? Why does comparison to Caitlin Clark get used as a measuring stick instead of recognizing different paths, personalities, and pressures? Demand answers, not spin. Follow the players who risk honesty. Support the ones who don't fit neatly into brand boxes. Call out organizations that hide behind vague statements while careers hang in the balance. The league watches fan reactions more closely than it ever admits. Every click, every share, every comment shifts leverage. And don't let this story fade. Because if Angel Reese can be paused, frozen, and reframed this easily, anyone can. Today it's her. Tomorrow it's another star. The pattern only survives when fans accept it as normal. Stay locked in. Watch the next move. Pay attention to who speaks, and who suddenly goes quiet. This scandal isn't over. It's evolving in real time, and the ending hasn't been written yet. If you want transparency, demand it. If you want fairness, amplify it. And if you want the truth, don't look away when it finally starts coming out. Because the next chapter won't be decided in a boardroom. It will be decided by how loudly the world responds right now.